interview of the year. It only took one comment about entitlement for Meghan Markle to completely unravel on Kelly Clarkson's stage, turning what should have been a friendly chat into an absolute disaster that no one saw coming. Kelly Clarkson's show has always been a safe space, a place where celebrities come to laugh, share stories, and connect with audiences in the most genuine way possible. Kelly herself is known for her warmth, her incredible voice, and her down-to-earth personality that makes every guest feel welcome. She's interviewed hundreds of people, from movie stars to musicians to everyday heroes, and every single time, she brings that same infectious energy and kindness. So when Meghan Markle was announced as a guest, everyone expected the usual. Some light conversation, maybe a few laughs, perhaps a story or two about life in California. The audience filed in with smiles on their faces, ready for another uplifting episode. The cameras were positioned perfectly, the lighting was warm and inviting, and Kelly's team had prepared a set of thoughtful questions designed to make Meghan feel comfortable. But from the moment Meghan walked onto that stage, something felt different. The energy was off. While Kelly stood up with her signature bright smile and open arms, ready to greet her guest with genuine enthusiasm, Meghan's expression was cold, detached, like she was doing everyone a favor just by being there. Kelly, ever the professional, didn't let it show if she noticed. She welcomed Meghan with the same warmth she gives everyone, gesturing to the guest chair and making a sweet comment about how great Meghan looked. The audience applauded politely, waiting for the conversation to begin. "Welcome, welcome. I'm so happy you could join us today," Kelly said, settling into her own chair with that easy, relaxed posture she's famous for. "How have you been? What's been going on in your world?" It was a simple opening question. The kind of softball question that every talk show host uses to ease into a conversation. Nothing controversial, nothing probing, just a friendly invitation to chat. Meghan barely looked at Kelly when she answered. "Well, just trying to navigate life with all the constant attention and scrutiny. It's exhausting, really. I don't think people understand how difficult it is to be in my position." The audience shifted uncomfortably. Kelly's smile stayed bright, but you could see a flicker of something in her eyes. Confusion, maybe. Or the first hint that this interview might not go as smoothly as planned. "I can imagine it's challenging," Kelly responded, keeping her tone supportive and kind. "But you've also done so much incredible work. I'd love to hear about some of the projects you're passionate about." Again, a perfectly reasonable question. A chance for Meghan to talk about something positive, to share what matters to her with millions of viewers. It was a gift, really. Free publicity delivered with genuine interest. But Meghan wasn't interested in talking about projects. She leaned back in her chair, crossed her arms, and let out a long sigh that the microphones picked up perfectly. "You know what, Kelly? I think that's part of the problem. Everyone always wants to focus on the work, the projects, the charity. But nobody ever asks me how I'm actually feeling. Nobody ever considers that maybe I'm tired of performing for everyone all the time." Kelly blinked. The audience went completely silent. This wasn't just unexpected, it was uncomfortable. Kelly had literally just asked how Meghan was doing. That was the very first question out of her mouth. I actually did ask how you were," Kelly said gently, a small laugh in her voice, trying to lighten the moment. "That's how we started." Meghan waved her hand dismissively. "You asked what's going on in my world. That's not the same thing. That's surface level. That's exactly what I'm talking about." The tension in the studio was thick enough to cut. Kelly's producers were probably having heart attacks in the control room. This was live television, airing to households across the country, and their guest was already creating an atmosphere that felt more like a confrontation than a conversation. But Kelly is a professional. She's been in the entertainment industry since she was 20 years old. She's handled difficult interviews before, navigated awkward moments, and always found a way to bring things back to a positive place. So she tried again. "Okay, I hear you," Kelly said, her voice still warm but more careful now. "So tell me, how are you feeling? Really feeling?" "I'm here to listen." Meghan looked at her for a long moment, and for just a second, it seemed like maybe she would open up. Maybe this would be the turning point where the interview found its footing. Instead, Meghan laughed. But it wasn't a warm laugh. It was sharp, almost mocking. "How am I feeling? I'm feeling like I'm sitting here, once again, having to explain myself to someone who could never understand what it's like to live my life. You sit here in your little studio, singing your little songs, and everyone loves you. You have no idea what it's like to be truly scrutinized, to have every single thing you do picked apart by the media." The audience gasped. Actually gasped. Because Kelly Clarkson, of all people, absolutely knows what scrutiny feels like. She's been in the public eye for over 20 years. She's had her voice criticized, her weight commented on, her divorce plastered across tabloids, her parenting questioned. She's been through public battles with record labels and management. If anyone in that room understood media scrutiny, it was Kelly. And yet, Kelly didn't snap back. She didn't get defensive. She just took a breath and responded with grace. "I think a lot of people in this industry understand scrutiny, Meghan. We've all been through different versions of it. But I'm not here to compare experiences. I'm just here to have a conversation with you." "A conversation," Meghan repeated, her tone dripping with sarcasm. "Right. A conversation where you get to boost your ratings by having me on your show, and I get to sit here and be judged by your audience." Kelly's smile finally faltered. Just for a moment, you could see the hurt flash across her face. Because this wasn't just rude, it was cruel. Kelly had extended an invitation, offered her platform, prepared thoughtful questions, and was being treated like she'd done something wrong. "Nobody here is judging you," Kelly said quietly. "We invited you because we thought our viewers would love to hear from you. That's all this is." Meghan stood up. Just stood right up in the middle of the interview, while the cameras were still rolling, while the audience sat in stunned silence. "You know what? I don't need this. I don't need to sit here and be patronized by someone who's never had to deal with a fraction of what I've been through. You want to know how I'm feeling? I'm feeling done with this entire charade." Kelly stood up too, but not in anger, in confusion, in genuine concern, because this had gone from awkward to completely off the rails in a matter of minutes. "Meghan, please, let's just take a breath and talk about this," Kelly offered, her hands out in a peaceful gesture. "If I said something that upset you, I sincerely apologize. That was never my intention." "Your intention," Meghan scoffed. "Your intention was to get a ratings boost, and you got it. Congratulations. But I'm not going to stand here and let you pretend like you actually care about me or my well-being." The audience was frozen. Some people had their hands over their mouths. Others were looking around, wondering if this was some kind of prank, some staged moment that would be revealed as a joke any second. But Kelly's face said it all. This was real, and it was really happening. "I do care," Kelly said, and her voice cracked just slightly. "I care about every person who sits in that chair. I care about you. That's why I invited you here." Meghan grabbed her purse from beside the chair. "No, Kelly, you care about your show. You care about your image. You care about being America's sweetheart. But you don't care about me. None of you do." She gestured broadly to the audience as she said this, implicating everyone in the room in whatever grievance she decided they were all guilty of. Kelly took a step back, and you could see her making a decision in real time. She could keep trying to salvage this, keep apologizing for offenses she didn't commit, keep extending olive branches that were being swatted away. Or she could stand up for herself, for her show, for her audience. She chose dignity. "I'm sorry you feel that way," Kelly said, her voice steady now. "I'm sorry this isn't what you expected, and I'm sorry if something I said hurt you. But I need you to know that everyone here came with good intentions. My team worked hard to prepare for this. My audience took time out of their day to be here. And I genuinely wanted to have a meaningful conversation with you. Meghan was already walking toward the edge of the stage. Well, you can have a meaningful conversation with someone else. I'm leaving. Meghan, wait, Kelly called out, but not desperately. Not begging, just one more attempt at civility. We still have 20 minutes left. Please, let's just sit back down and start over. Meghan turned around, and the look on her face was pure contempt. Start over? So you can ask me more surface-level questions and pretend like you understand anything about my life? No, thank you. I have better things to do with my time than be your circus act. That was it. That was the line that changed everything. Because calling Kelly's show, this warm, genuine, beloved show, a circus act, that was an insult not just to Kelly, but to every guest who'd ever shared their story there, every audience member who'd ever attended, every viewer who'd ever found comfort or joy in watching. Kelly's expression hardened, not with anger, but with resolve. I think it's best if you do leave, Kelly said, her voice calm but firm. I've tried to be respectful. I've tried to be understanding, but I won't let you disrespect my show, my team, or my audience. If you want to go, then go. Meghan looked shocked, like she couldn't believe Kelly had actually stood up to her, like she'd expected Kelly to keep apologizing, keep trying to smooth things over, keep taking the abuse with a smile. Excuse me, Meghan said, her voice going up an octave. Are you kicking me off your show? I'm giving you what you asked for, Kelly replied. You said you wanted to leave. So leave. Nobody's stopping you. The audience, despite the tension, despite the discomfort, started to clap. Slowly at first, then building. Because they'd just watched Kelly Clarkson handle an impossible situation with grace, patience, and ultimately, self-respect. Meghan's face flushed red. You people are unbelievable. You sit here and applaud while I'm being thrown out like garbage. This is exactly what I'm talking about. This is the kind of treatment I have to deal with every single day. Kelly shook her head. Nobody threw you out. You decided to leave. You stood up. You grabbed your purse. You insulted my show. I just agreed with your decision. I cannot believe this, Meghan muttered, loud enough for the microphones to catch. I cannot believe I wasted my time coming here. She stormed off the stage, her heels clicking sharply against the floor. The cameras followed her for a few seconds before cutting back to Kelly, who stood there looking genuinely stunned at what had just transpired. For a long moment, Kelly just stood there. The audience didn't know whether to keep clapping or sit in silence. The energy in the room was chaotic, a mixture of shock and support and complete disbelief. Then Kelly did what Kelly Clarkson does best. She took a breath, put her hand over her heart, and spoke directly to her audience with complete honesty. I don't even know what to say right now, she admitted, her voice a little shaky. I have never, in all my years of doing this show, had anything like that happen. I tried. I really tried to make her feel welcome, to have a good conversation, but sometimes it just doesn't work out. The audience applauded again, this time louder, longer. People were standing up, showing their support for Kelly, letting her know that they saw what happened, and they knew she'd done nothing wrong. Kelly's eyes got a little misty, but she smiled. Thank you. Thank you for being here, for being the best audience in the world. I'm sorry you had to witness that, but I'm grateful for your support. She wiped at her eyes quickly, laughing at herself. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to shake this off and have some fun. Because that's what we do here. We spread joy, and we're not going to let one bad moment ruin our day. Sound good? The audience cheered. The cameras cut to commercial, and backstage, Kelly's team rushed to her side, making sure she was okay, and already working on how to handle the rest of the show. But Kelly didn't need much help. By the time they came back from commercial, she'd composed herself completely. She addressed what happened briefly, acknowledging that sometimes interviews don't go as planned, and then she moved on. She brought out her next guest, a local teacher who'd started a free lunch program for students in need, and she gave that teacher the full warmth and attention and enthusiasm that she'd tried to give Meghan. The show continued. Kelly sang with her guest, shared stories, made people laugh. She did exactly what she'd promised. She shook it off and spread joy. Because that's who Kelly Clarkson is. She's someone who shows up with kindness, who treats people with respect, who creates a space where conversations can happen and stories can be shared. She's someone who, even when faced with hostility and disrespect, chose to take the high road. Meanwhile, Meghan had left the building. She'd gotten into her car and driven away, leaving behind a studio full of people who'd witnessed something they'd never forget. The contrast couldn't have been clearer. On one side, a host who'd handled an impossible situation with grace and professionalism. On the other, a guest who'd walked onto a show with a chip on her shoulder and left having proven every negative assumption people might have had about entitlement and attitude. Kelly never asked for the confrontation. She'd prepared thoughtful questions, created a welcoming environment, and approached the interview with nothing but good intentions. She'd tried, repeatedly, to find common ground, to make Meghan comfortable, to have a meaningful exchange. But Meghan had come in defensive, looking for slights where none existed, interpreting kindness as condescension, and ultimately revealing far more about herself than any question could have uncovered. The audience had seen it all. They'd watched Kelly extend patience and understanding. They'd watched her apologize for things she hadn't done wrong. They'd watched her try, again and again, to salvage the conversation. And they'd watched her finally stand up for herself, not with cruelty or anger, but with simple, dignified firmness. When Kelly said, "I think it's best if you do leave," it wasn't an attack. It was a boundary. It was a woman saying, "I've been respectful, I've been kind, and I deserve the same in return." That moment, that simple statement, resonated because it was real. It was someone refusing to be a doormat while still maintaining their composure and class. Meghan's accusations of being patronized fell flat because the audience had seen the whole thing unfold. They'd heard Kelly's gentle questions, her attempts to connect, her genuine offers to listen. There was no patronizing tone, no hidden agenda, no attempt to trap or embarrass. There was just a host trying to do her job, and a guest determined to be offended. When Meghan claimed that Kelly couldn't understand scrutiny, the audience knew better. They knew Kelly's history, her struggles, her public challenges. They knew she'd been vulnerable and open about her difficulties. The comparison wasn't just unfair, it was demonstrably false. When Meghan suggested the show was just using her for ratings, it ignored the obvious. Kelly's show was already successful. It had a loyal audience, great guests, and consistent viewership. Having Meghan on was meant to be a nice addition, not a desperate grab for attention. Every accusation Meghan threw out seemed to say more about her own insecurities and assumptions than about any actual wrongdoing from Kelly or her team. The circus act comment was particularly telling, because a circus act implies performance, spectacle, something fake or manufactured. But Kelly's show has always been the opposite. It's authentic conversations, real emotions, genuine connections. Calling it a circus act revealed that Meghan either fundamentally misunderstood what the show was about, or she was just lashing out. Either way, it was Kelly who came out of the exchange looking like the bigger person. She'd been calm when she could have been angry. She'd been patient when she could have been defensive. She'd been kind when she could have been cutting. And when she finally drew a line, when she finally said, "Enough is enough," she did it with such simple dignity that even in that moment of confrontation, she remained likable, relatable, and completely in the right. The audience's reaction said everything. Their applause wasn't scripted or prompted. It was spontaneous, genuine support for someone who'd just been treated unfairly and had handled it beautifully. They clapped because they saw themselves in Kelly. How many times have people tried to be nice, only to have their kindness thrown back in their face? How many times have people extended patience to someone who didn't deserve it? How many times have people had to decide between continuing to absorb mistreatment or standing up for themselves? Kelly's moment of standing firm was cathartic for everyone watching, because it was a reminder that you can be kind without being a pushover. You can be understanding without being a doormat. You can give people chances without giving them unlimited permission to disrespect you. The way Kelly handled the rest of the show after Meghan left was equally important. She didn't spend the remaining time talking about what happened, didn't turn it into a spectacle, didn't milk the drama. She acknowledged it briefly, thanked her audience for their support, and moved on. That choice showed maturity and professionalism that stood in stark contrast to the chaos that had just unfolded. While Meghan had made everything about herself, about her feelings, about her grievances, Kelly made the choice to refocus on what the show was supposed to be about: uplifting stories, meaningful conversations, and spreading joy. The teacher who came out next got the full Kelly Clarkson experience: the attention, the enthusiasm, the genuine interest in their work. Kelly didn't let what happened with Meghan color the rest of her day or diminish the respect she showed to other guests. That's the mark of true professionalism: not letting one bad experience ruin everything else, not carrying bitterness or resentment into the next interaction, just taking a breath, resetting, and showing up with the same positive energy. Throughout the entire ordeal, Kelly never raised her voice. She never called Meghan names. She never stooped to personal attacks. She simply set a boundary and held it. Compare that to Meghan's approach: the standing up abruptly, the sarcastic tone, the sweeping accusations, the dramatic exit, the need to have the last word, to make sure everyone knew she was the victim. She was the one being wronged. It was a masterclass in contrasts. One person secure enough in themselves to handle conflict with grace. Another person so insecure that simple questions felt like attacks. One person willing to apologize for misunderstandings even when she'd done nothing wrong. Another person unable to take any responsibility, instead blaming everyone else for the tension she'd created. One person who could laugh at herself, show emotion, be vulnerable in a healthy way. Another person who mistook defensiveness for strength and hostility for standing up for herself. The audience left that studio having witnessed something extraordinary. Not just drama, not just conflict, but a real-life example of how to handle difficult people and difficult situations with dignity. They saw that you don't have to match someone's negative energy. You don't have to sink to someone else's level. You can be the bigger person without being weak. You can stand up for yourself without being cruel. Kelly's show has always been about authenticity, and that day, viewers got the most authentic moment possible. They saw their host tested in real time and watched her pass that test with flying colors. They saw someone who valued herself enough to say no more, but valued others enough to say it kindly. They saw someone who could have turned the whole thing into a public relations nightmare, but instead chose to handle it with such grace that she somehow came out looking even better than before. Because at the end of the day, character isn't revealed when things are going well. It's revealed in moments of stress, conflict, and confrontation. And Kelly's character shone through brilliantly. Meghan, on the other hand, revealed that beneath all the talk of being misunderstood and mistreated, there was an unwillingness to take responsibility for her own behavior, an inability to see when someone was genuinely trying to help, a tendency to interpret everything through the lens of victimhood, even when the evidence clearly showed otherwise. She came onto that show with an opportunity, a platform, a host who wanted to hear her story, an audience ready to listen, and she squandered it all by bringing negativity, defensiveness, and entitlement. The saddest part wasn't even the confrontation itself. It was the missed opportunity. Because if Meghan had approached that interview with even a fraction of the openness that Kelly offered, it could have been something beautiful. A real conversation about real challenges. A moment of connection. Instead, it became a cautionary tale about what happens when you walk into every room expecting the worst from people. When you interpret kindness as manipulation. When you're so focused on being right that you can't see when you're wrong. Kelly's studio has hosted hundreds of guests, and hundreds more will come after this incident. Most of them will be lovely. They'll share and laugh and connect with Kelly and the audience. They'll leave feeling heard and appreciated, and every single one of them will be grateful they're not the one who went down in talk show history as the person who picked a fight with Kelly Clarkson for no reason and lost spectacularly. Because that's what happened when you strip away all the posturing and accusations. Meghan picked a fight with someone who'd done nothing to deserve it, and she lost. Not because Kelly fought back, but because Kelly didn't need to. The truth was obvious to everyone watching. The cameras caught it all. The microphones picked up every word. There was no ambiguity, no room for interpretation. One person came to that interview with an open heart. The other came with a closed fist. One person tried to build a bridge. The other burned it down before it was even finished. One person walked away with their reputation enhanced. The other walked away having confirmed every negative thing people might have thought about them. And through it all, Kelly Clarkson remained exactly who she's always been. Warm, genuine, kind, and strong enough to know when kindness is being abused. That's the real story. Not just what Meghan did, but how Kelly responded. Not just the conflict, but the grace. Because anyone can create drama. Anyone can storm off a stage. Anyone can throw accusations and play the victim. But it takes real strength to stay calm in chaos. Real character to remain kind in the face of cruelty. Real wisdom to know when to keep trying and when to let go. Kelly Clarkson showed all of that and more. She showed millions of viewers what it looks like to have boundaries without being mean. To be patient without being passive. To be understanding without being a fool. She turned what could have been her worst professional moment into an example of how to handle yourself when everything is falling apart around you. And that's why, when that commercial break ended and Kelly came back with a smile, ready to continue